Hello everyone, thank you for coming back to the channel. I'm Librarian Sam, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the disappearance of Lyndsey Barratt. Now, spoiler warnings, there will be spoilers here, so if you want to read the book, just stop listening to this, come back later, and we can discuss it after. But if you are interested in what's happening, you've been warned. All right, so the disappearance of Lyndsey Barratt is it's a very tragic and sad story, to be honest with you. The ending does not leave a good aftertaste, to be honest. It just does not. It's not a very positive ending. It's a very sad ending. But that's something you gotta know before coming into here. All right. So in the prologue, the book starts as the disappearance of Lyndsey Barratt. Basically, it starts as a shipman or the captain of a ship is docking. He's at a bar with a couple of his buddies, and he meets a girl there. And the girl says that she's a photographer, that she's just trying to get some shots for the open sea. And afterwards, they wanted to, go out on the sea, take pictures, like a normal thing. And then it starts to get a little spicy. She starts seducing him, saying that, oh, you're so sexy, doing this and that. And somehow in all that, she's able to convince him to tie himself up, saying that'll make him feel better. And that's what they do. And she takes the opportunity and whacks him. Straight knife, cuts it right off and stabs him right to death. And that's the prologue. The beginning of the book, the chapter 1, really starts out with Lyndsey graduating from college. She's an actress, and she just received her degree in it. She was like first in her class. She was doing great, and it seemed like a positive night. Her family, on the other hand, was not able to come see her. Her father was busy with work, and her mother has cerebral palsy, so she can't really get in and out of a car very well. But, she's bummed out, but her teacher's saying, oh, applaud for you. You're number one in class. And she started celebrating. She had a really great time at the ceremony. They took a bunch of pictures. The next chapter literally comes back to a cricket team. The sport of cricket. I don't know how cricket's played or anything like that. But they're playing cricket, and they just won a big game. The team won a big game. And there is a character in there named Porgy Georgie, who is the so-called leader. His name's George Weston, though. And so, George goes into the, how do we put it? He goes into the cart, eventually. Oh, I'm jumping a little ahead of things. What happens is that, as Lyndsey's going home, she takes the same train as the cricket team they take after their big game. Now, the guys on the cricket team are smoking, having a good time. Lyndsey's just reading her book. And in it all, I remember straightforward that one of the team members comes over, starts trying to flirt with her, annoying her. She's clearly saying she's not interested. And then, all of a sudden, one thing turns to another. A bunch of the team members come in, and they force her to smoke a certain drug. And after they have forced her to do that, she starts hallucinating, and the team takes advantage of her and commits a very violent essay. Now, I hope you guys know what essay means, because I'm not going to say it on my channel. However, with all this essay going on, eventually the team leaves. They leave behind their jackets, their ties. Like, what are you thinking? Why are you leaving behind all your stuff after you've committed that? But I don't know. It just is. They were cocky. And one of the team members, what he does is that he throws a marijuana cigarette or a drug cigarette into her briefcase to try to plant it on her to make it seem like she was the one who wanted drugs and everything. And then one of the train attendants finds her, and she's just brutally assaulted. The book goes into more detail, stating how, what specifically happened and whatnot. If you end up reading the book, that is something to be aware of. John Wilson, the author, goes into very big detail of what has happened. And after all that, how do I put this? She gets taken to a hospital. Then comes in the detective, Frank Illiterate, I believe his name is. I called him Frank Ill because I really couldn't pronounce his last name. So, and that's what I'm going to call him for the rest of this video. Frank Ill was the detective on the case. He was trying to basically put it together, like what had happened. He did the investigation. And during the whole book, there's this like unspoken relationship between Frank Ill and Julie. Julie is a reporter for a local news station. I forget what it's called. And, coming out through this all, she's trying to get like the rights, like her family comes in and discovers what happened. And Julie tries to be like, well, if you give us the exclusive story to what has happened to Lyndsey, then we'll probably pay you X amount of dollars as long as you don't give the money or give the story to any other news team. And after all that, they were like really in distraught, like thinking, oh, maybe we should because Lyndsey needs the money. We need to put her first. And her father's just like, I want to kill those guys that have really hurt my daughter. And then somewhere down the line, like he goes back to work, but then he dies from a heart attack. Like right at work, like it just comes out of nowhere. And Lyndsey is left fatherless. But Lyndsey's in a state where she's very vulnerable. Like she just faced a very traumatic thing and her mind is kind of like broken. And then, somehow in the book, it says that her twin sister, came and got her and she escaped with her twin sister afterwards. And that's where the first part really ends in the book. And everything's put on hold because Lyndsey can't report a essay anymore. She can't make a report about it because she's not there to testify. And then it like fast forwards in time to where certain members of the cricket team have all been killed. Like 9 out of 10 of them have been killed. And then you go to the perspective of someone named Deborah. Deborah, spoiler alert, Deborah is very important in the story. It's really mind-blowing what has happened. But Deborah is looking for a job, and the story tells like she's looking for a new place to live, a flatmate. She finds, what was her name? What's her name? Linda. That was her name. Linda. Linda is her landlord of such. And she goes and says, oh, no worries. You can come in here. And she's looking for a job. She finds a job with a local motor company. And the boss' name is Peter Shackleton. Peter Shackleton is married, but he's also very crooked. One case to another, he ends up flirting with Linda. And Linda turns out to be the sister of Lyndsey. Peter was part of the cricket team that assaulted Lyndsey. And so she somehow seduces him and ends up the same way as the captain, getting him tied down and really just injuring him and like killing him. And then after that, she runs away. She leaves a note behind to Deborah. Deborah brings the police involved. And basically, Frank Ill has come up to the conclusion that the cricket members are all being killed off. There's only one person left. His name is George. And basically, he goes to George, telling him the entire thing. George is just an utter scumbag. He's an utter scumbag. Because, he really doesn't care about anything other than his business and his enjoyments. And when he hears about this, he just says to the security team, all right, put the whole security team up. I want to make sure that she's not going to come in here, that she's not going to do anything. And, the whole place is like, okay, no problem. And so they start piecing things together. Trying to work. Frank ends up going to a individual who works with serial killers at a certain college. He, debates everything, and he starts remembering everything. Oh, and one thing that I forgot was that Linda, she ends up taping all the murders, like all 10 of the murders and how they occurred. She videotapes it and brings it to this club. This club ends up really fascinated by all this, and they're really turned on by all the murders and everything like that. And it just blows Frank's mind because he's like, this is real. And like, oh, it can't be real. It's all latex. No, it's real. And afterwards, Linda ends up going around trying to get close to her. George, she's trying to figure out what's happening. Meanwhile, Julie's having on the record a conversation with George about the past essay on Linda or Lyndsey. And Lyndsey is, you find her in the back really just trying to, like, being like she's in a safe place, she can't be hurt. And one thing to another, Deborah ends up being more crucial to the story because the police don't know how to identify Linda because they've never seen Linda. So they use Deborah to try to bring her into George's business, saying, you can identify Linda. You can help us save George and whatnot. And, for the most part, she comes in there. She doesn't find Linda. But George ends up taking a fancy to her. George is trying to seduce her. He even tried to essay her beforehand. And she seduced her by saying, well, why don't you come with me? We can go to my cottage outside of the town. I got a buddy named Tom there. And she ends up doing it. And then one thing I should have mentioned before is that they have this computer. This computer is supposed to very well, supposedly, help predict crimes and help predict different facts about the case. And one thing that's really going off about is that it's saying that who is Lyndsey, who is Linda, who is Deborah. And it really and now here's the biggest spoiler I'm going to give. This is what happens. It's revealed that Lyndsey, after she was essayed on the train, faced such a traumatic event that her mind split, and she now has multiple personality disorder. Her sister Lyndsey is just one of her personalities. And after that, so is Deborah. And it's finally revealed through the computer, but when the person looks up, it's like, oh, it's just malfunctioning again. No, it's not. They are all the same person. And when she goes to the place outside of town where there's a shooting range, Deborah ends up switching to Lyndsey, and Lyndsey shoots her friend Tom, then tells George to strip naked. And right when she does, and right when he's about to kill her or kill him, the barrel is empty, or the gun's empty. And this is where it turns into a much darker thing, where George ends up basically forcing himself onto her again. And it ends because Frank comes by, he discovers what happened, and he ends up arresting George for basically what he did, plus another few charges. And the story ends, they discover that Lyndsey has multiple personality disorder, and they take her in to a mental hospital where she is predicted to have been essayed again recently, and having been becoming pregnant. And the epilogue of the story, which is unfortunate, is that she stays in a hospital, but because she is mentally ill, she cannot legally represent or make a statement. So George is unable to be charged for SA, and unfortunately gets away with only having to serve a few years in prison. And it turns out that Lyndsey has a baby, but then the baby is brought into adopted parents. And something strange happened is that she's wondering where her mom and her aunt Linda is. And that's where the book ends, in the epilogue. I know I threw a lot out. I really got to take more notes with all this to really organize my thoughts, and that's what I'm going to start doing going forward. But that's the story of the disappearance of Lyndsey Barratt. there's more details into it all, and I encourage you all to read it and really get to know the story. John Wilson really did put a great story in all this, but it's, as I said, it's a very sad ending. It's unfortunate, and that's the end of the story. If I were to give it a score from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, I would give it possibly a 3.5, because it wasn't a bad story. I didn't like the ending. I thought the ending was very screwed up, but at the same time, it was a good story. It was a good, like, whodunit, and the twist ending, I like the twist ending. All right. Thank you guys for stopping the channel. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, please subscribe, like the video, and share. Thank you very much, and have a great day.